Imagine a perfectly normal, bright, sunny morning. You're standing in your brightly lit bathroom, the warm sunlight pouring in through the window. You turn on the faucet, splash cold water on your face, and look up at your reflection in the mirror. You blink your eyes, but the reflection staring back at you does not blink. It just stares at you, completely frozen. For a fraction of a millisecond, your reflection is lagging behind reality, a digital desync. You blink again and it's back to normal, just a trick of the bright morning light. Or was it? I want you to think back through your life. Think about the absolute closest you have ever come to dying. Maybe it was a car hydroplaning on a wet highway. Maybe you fell from a height that should have broken your neck. Or maybe it was a severe childhood illness where the doctors told your parents to prepare for the worst. You survived by pure luck, by a fraction of an inch, by a single miraculous split-second reaction. But what if I told you you didn't survive? What if the mathematical laws of the universe dictate that in that specific moment your luck ran out and you died? But because of a terrifying glitch in the physics engine of our reality, your consciousness simply refused to accept it. For decades, theoretical physicists have debated a concept so deeply unsettling it borders on science fiction. But the math proves it might be completely real. It is called quantum immortality. The terrifying mathematical probability that your consciousness cannot physically die. You are trapped in an endless loop of survival, continuously respawning into parallel timelines, leaving behind a trail of dead universes where your family is currently mourning your loss. To understand how you are immortal, we first have to look at how the universe processes choices. Think about how a massive, branching video game storyline works. When a player is presented with two choices, go left or go right, the game's code has already rendered both outcomes. If the player makes a mistake and dies, they don't stop existing. They simply reload from the last checkpoint and choose the other path. In 1957, a brilliant physicist named Hugh Everett proposed that our universe operates using the exact same software logic. It is called the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Everett mathematically proved that the universe does not actually make choices. Instead, every single time a quantum event occurs, the universe physically and violently tears itself apart, splitting into two distinct parallel timelines to allow both outcomes to happen simultaneously. If you flip a coin, the universe splits. In one reality, it lands on heads. In the exact same physical space, in a parallel dimension you cannot see, a copy of you watches it land on tails. Every choice you have ever made, every close call, every accident has spawned billions of branching universes. A massive, infinite server farm of parallel timelines containing every possible version of your life. In millions of those timelines, you are wildly successful. But in millions of others, you made the wrong choice. You didn't look both ways before crossing the street. You didn't catch that illness in time. In millions of parallel realities, the version of you sitting here watching this video has already been buried. Stop scrolling for a second. Look away from the screen. I want you to try and remember a highly specific memory from your childhood. Something you remember vividly. But when you bring it up to your parents, your siblings, or your friends, they look at you blankly. They swear to you that it never happened. You assume it was just a dream or a faulty memory. But what if it wasn't? What if that memory is the residual scar tissue of a timeline shift? The internet calls this the Mandela Effect. Millions of people sharing the exact same false memories of brand names, movies, or historical events that supposedly never happened. Psychologists call it a mass delusion, but quantum physicists wonder if it is something much darker. It isn't a false memory. It is a true memory from a timeline you left behind when you died. Here is the biological loophole that makes you immortal. In quantum mechanics, an outcome only becomes real when it is actively measured by an observer. Your consciousness, your subjective first-person perspective of reality, is the ultimate observer. But there is a fatal flaw in your biology. Your consciousness can only experience things that exist. It is mathematically impossible for you to experience nothingness or your own non-existence. So, what happens when you are driving down a bright sunny highway and a massive truck swerves into your lane? In timeline A, the truck hits you. Your brain is destroyed. But because your consciousness cannot experience the darkness of death, it simply refuses to render the collision. Instead, in the exact fraction of a millisecond before impact, your consciousness acts like water hitting a rock. It smoothly flows around the obstacle, instantly transferring your subjective awareness into timeline B, the closest adjacent parallel universe where your reflexes were 1 millisecond faster. You violently swerve out of the way. Your heart is pounding. You pull over to the side of the sunny road, wiping cold sweat from your forehead, thinking you just experienced a miracle. It wasn't a miracle. It was a respawn. You died in the original timeline. You just woke up in a new save file. If this sounds like an unprovable late-night internet conspiracy, it isn't. This is peer-reviewed academic physics. You have probably heard of Schrödinger's cat, the famous physics paradox where a cat inside a box is simultaneously both alive and dead until a scientist opens the box to look at it. But in 1997, Max Tegmark, a leading physics professor at MIT, completely flipped that experiment. He asked a terrifying question. What happens if you are the cat? He proposed a thought experiment known in academic circles as quantum suicide. Imagine a scientist sitting in a brilliantly lit, sterile white laboratory. Pointed directly at their head is a highly advanced weapon. But this weapon isn't controlled by a human, it is controlled by a quantum particle. Every 10 seconds, the machine measures the spin of a single quantum quark. If the quark spins up, the gun harmlessly clicks and does nothing. If the quark spins down, the gun fires instantly, terminating the scientist before their brain can even process the sound. It is a perfect 50-50 game of quantum Russian roulette. The scientist initiates the machine. To the assistant standing in the corner of the room, the universe splits. The assistant has a 50% chance of seeing the scientist survive and a 50% chance of witnessing a tragedy. Eventually, the assistant will watch the gun fire. But from the perspective of the scientist in the chair, the gun will never fire. Because their consciousness cannot transfer into a timeline where they are dead. Their subjective awareness will only follow the timeline where the quark spins up. Click, click, click. The machine could run 1 billion times. The mathematical odds of surviving 1 billion coin flips are effectively 0. But the scientist will just sit there, listening to a harmless clicking sound for eternity, believing the machine is broken. They are immortal, trapped by their own inability to observe their own death. But there is a horrifying flaw in the theory of quantum immortality. If your consciousness always forces you into a surviving timeline, it does not protect you from biological decay. It does not stop old age. Imagine you are 100 years old. Your body is failing. You are lying in a sterile hospital bed. Your heart finally stops. But your consciousness cannot die. So the universe splits. You transfer into a highly improbable timeline where a rogue defibrillator suddenly shocks your heart back to life. Years pass. You are 120. You catch a fatal disease. You shift into a bizarre timeline where doctors miraculously invent a cure the exact same day. You are 150, then 200. You become a medical anomaly. You watch your children grow old and pass away. You watch your grandchildren pass away. As the centuries drag on, your consciousness will continuously force you into increasingly bizarre, statistically impossible timelines just to keep the lights on in your decaying brain. You will outlive the human race. You will outlive the Earth. You will eventually find yourself as a ruined biological shell, floating in the dark, frozen void of a dying universe, kept alive by pure quantum probability. Immortality isn't a superpower, it is a glitch in the physics engine, and you are trapped in it forever. How many times do you think you have already died? Let us know your wildest near-death experiences in the comments down below. Hit subscribe to join the Cosmic Vault before you shift into a timeline where this channel doesn't exist. We will see you in the next dimension.